I think there's so much more to Connor than people are perhaps willing to see, so I wanted to come online and rant into the abyss about why I feel Connor Kenway deserves more recognition. To start things off, when we first play as Connor, he's roughly 5 years old. He's raised by his mother inside of his tribe, who are his people. These are the only people he has probably known his whole life so far, and it wouldn't be a stretch that these people would be fearful and distrust of any outsiders. Hell, even at the beginning of the first mission you play as Connor, you can overhear how his friends are scared of the outsiders with their weapons of metal and fire. His people aren't exactly oblivious to the ways of the outside world, and Connor's mother knows what they're like, having been captured as a slave by Siylus Thatcher a few years prior. Connor would have more than likely grown up to be cautious and distrustful of outsiders, so when he's confronted about the Templars helmed by Charles Lee after playing hide and seek with his friends, this is more than likely his first interaction with people outside of his culture. Hearing all these stories and fears, he has these impressions of what these people are like, and they live up to them and worse. They trip him up, call him racial slurs, and degrade him, not only him but also his people, threatening his life while choking him up against a tree with their hands. As far as a first impression could go, this is going horribly enough already. But what happens immediately after he's been beaten and knocked out by these complete strangers? He sees his village on fire and he has to watch as his mother is literally burned alive while he desperately tries to save her. A scared child trying to save his mother from dying, and he fails. In his mind, it's Charles Lee and the men he was with, the outsiders who came to his village and burned everything to the ground and took the life of his mother. I think all of this adds up as to why Connor can be seen as distrustful and angry at outsiders, especially men like Charles Lee. Connor is often described as being cold and angry, but that's just a facade that he puts up in front of people he doesn't know or trust. How could he be vulnerable and carefree knowing what happened the last time he was? He lost his mother and almost lost his life, so he keeps it straight to the point. He's driven to finish his tasks and get things done. He wants to protect his people. He doesn't have time to worry about anything else while on the job. When he's talking to Achilles, yes, they argue back and forth a bit, but with the music in some scenes, it's implied that this is kind of light-hearted. His childlike attitude comes out and he expresses himself quite openly. But the moment he notices a complete stranger, the walls come back up and he is cold and to the point. At quite a few points in game, Connor is seen as being incredibly thoughtful and introspective, not only with the war with the assassins and the Templars, but also with the gravity of taking a life and the progress or lack thereof which comes from that. Connor also doesn't like to be touched by people. This is seen especially during the scene with Paul Revere touching him constantly. I mean, he was choked and had his life threatened and he doesn't trust outsiders, so why would he like anybody touching him that he doesn't know? As somebody who doesn't like people touching me, I thought it sort of comforting knowing that there was a character like that who didn't like it too. While the homestead missions are optional, I feel like they add more detail into Connor's character. While he is still a tad reserved, he is shown as being kind and thoughtful, humble too. He describes the people on the homestead as his friends, and he goes out of his way to defend them from threats, be that abusive husbands, the British Army, and poachers. He helps Norris the miner when it comes to him finding the perfect gift to give his crush. He comforts Beatrice when she talks about her and her husband's struggles with getting pregnant, and offers to help her out when she needs it. Connor even takes pride in the fact that he gets the honour of walking Norris's wife-to-be down the aisle as a replacement for her father. I understand these missions are side content and are completely optional. You can play throughout the entire game and not touch these missions, so without them, yeah, I can see why people would say that Connor is boring and angry, but he's not always like that, and I personally don't think he's boring. Of course, people can play through these missions and hear what I have to say and still think that Connor is a boring protagonist with no depth. That is their opinion and I'm happy to respect that. For me personally, I think there is depth there if you look into it a bit more. Something which made me appreciate the ending more and appreciate Connor's reactions was by playing all of the homestead missions before the end of Sequence 11. At the end of Sequence 10, we get the revelation that it was actually Washington that set the attack on his village 14 years prior, and that he's planning to exterminate his people thanks to Charles Lee, convincing the natives to stand up and fight back. Because of all this, Connor has to end up killing his best friend, who is convinced that Connor has betrayed them and his people. So at the beginning of Sequence 11, we have two personal reasons as to why we want to hunt him down, along with one overarching reason as to him being a Templar. We have the abuse/trauma that he inflicted on us as a child, as the sole reason as to why he has to kill his lifelong friend. At the beginning of Sequence 11, we see Achilles on his deathbed, and thanks to playing all of the homestead missions, Achilles passes away before the events at New York at Fort George. We bury him, and his last words to us in person was that we have to kill Charles Lee, otherwise everybody is in danger. So having played all of the homestead missions, burying Achilles, and the events that have transpired in Sequence 10 with his friend, I don't find it too much of a surprise as to why Connor would be so hell-bent on taking Lee's life. Is it a meme? Yeah, and it's pretty funny too. But there is a reason as to why he wants Charles Lee so much. In one way or another, he keeps taking things away from him. I would be pissed if he was the reason my best friend died and my people were under threat, let alone having Achilles' last words in person to you being to kill that very man, and having to bury your mentor too all beforehand, and then having to kill your own father who is protecting Lee. Connor just can't catch a break. I love Connor, and at the end of the day, I just want to share my thoughts and feelings for him in a little video. I'm writing all of this at 2:45 in the morning, but what can I say? I'm passionate. But I do feel like Connor gets too easily saddled with being a boring and dull character, and I just wanted to explain a few reasons as to why I personally think that Connor is an interesting character and deserves a bit more love. If you're a fan of Assassin's Creed as much as I am, I reckon you're going to love the video that's up on screen now. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you're having an incredible day.